Hello, I'm Connie Hawk, Director of the Licking County Foundation. Thank you for your interest in learning what the Foundation has been up to over the last year, and to reflect upon the many caring people who help create many positive ripples in our community, or what we call compassion in action. It's hard to imagine that just over a year ago, some of us had never been in a Zoom meeting, ordered our groceries online, or ever thought our commute to work would mean pouring a cup of coffee and heading to an office at home. In my case, is a spare room above my garage. Now, as we look back, we can appreciate how much we have learned, especially that our community is resilient and resourceful. The word of the year became pivot, and pivot we did. Pivot became our mantra, steady remained our credo. Few things will test the tenacity of an organization and its capacity the way the global pandemic prompted the Licking County Foundation to pivot in 2020. The story of last year is a story of many organizations. It illustrates our ability to shift our thinking and our operational model so that we could continue to serve the community during a time of crisis. LCF stayed steady in furthering our mission with counted on flagship programs. We also took on an expanded role to help our community meet extraordinary and unforeseen challenges and circumstances caused by the pandemic. And much of this was possible only because donors, including new donors, responded with extraordinary generosity. Licking County donors mirrored much of what took place in giving across the country. Giving USA, a public service initiative that tracks charitable giving trends across all sectors, released their 2021 annual report on philanthropy for the year 2020 in mid-June. It's the longest running and most comprehensive report on philanthropy in America. The infographic on the screen was prepared and provided by the Benefactor Group, who also shared that 2020 was perhaps the most uncommon year in history of Giving USA. Yet again, philanthropy proved to be resilient and served a vital role in addressing the challenges of a global health pandemic, a social justice movement, and a global recession. In a June 15th press release, Giving USA highlighted who gave. Charitable contributions increased by 5.1% to a record $471 billion as compared with 2019. 3 of 4 giving sources saw increases. Giving by individuals rose by 2.2% in 2020, reaching its highest ever dollar amount to date, but it comprised less than 70% of total giving for the third consecutive year. Giving by foundations increased 17%, reaching its highest ever dollar amount. Giving by foundations grew in 9 of the last 10 years and represents 19% of total giving in 2020, its largest share on record. Giving by bequest grew 10.3% from 2019. This often fluctuates substantially from year to year. Giving USA also highlighted who received. The 2020 philanthropic response highlighted donors' priorities. 7 of 9 sectors grew. Giving to education increased 9%, boosted by support for academic research on coronavirus and donations to historically Black colleges or universities. Giving to public society benefit organizations increased by 15.7%. This category includes a wide range of charitable organizations, including National Donor Advised Funds, United Ways, and civil rights organizations. Giving to health and to arts, culture, humanities organizations declined. In addition to large nonprofit hospitals, health organizations include those that focus on addressing specific diseases. Many in-person walks, runs, and other fundraising events that disease-specific health organizations host as major fundraisers saw a decline in participation and charitable revenue due to the pandemic. Giving USA summed up with, remarkably, generous giving coupled with the stock market turnaround in the final months of the year boosted contributions, resulting in the highest year of charitable giving on record. The generosity reflected in the national picture certainly played out here at home. Thanks to our donors and fund advisors, LCF was able to do more than just continue to operate on the shifting sands of a rapidly moving public health emergency that collided mid-year with the dynamics of a racial equity movement. In 2020, the Licking County Foundation established 12 new funds, raised $3.5 million, provided $3.9 million in support through grants and scholarships, and grew assets to over $128 million. Here's a snapshot of how LCF stepped up to lift our community in 2020 in new or expanded ways. We shifted to remote operations. In March, LCF operations went fully remote. Our team continued to provide exceptional support to organizations serving our community and assistance to donors and funders, helping them to achieve their philanthropic goals. An emergency operations plan was adopted to guide the board and staff through business and mission decisions in a stay-at-home model. We partnered to provide COVID-19 relief. By late March, LCF had partnered with the United Way of Licking County to establish the Licking County COVID-19 Relief Fund. An agreement was put in place, a grant oversight committee was formed. Leaders came together via Zoom every Monday morning at 7 a.m. to share challenges and updates about their rapidly evolving responses to the crisis, and a communications team of LCF and United Way staff and volunteers worked seamlessly to keep the community informed. We convened nonprofits to better understand. Together with the United Way, we organized 3 virtual nonprofit convenings to discuss housing and basic needs, services to seniors, and transportation opportunities and obstacles to better understand how philanthropy could help the most during this time. And donors and nonprofits stepped up to help. Donors contributed nearly $302,000, and to date, the fund has distributed almost $220,000 in grants to 25 community organizations. This impactful collaboration will continue until all funds have been dispersed. Organizations that received grants from the COVID-19 Relief Fund completed brief reports. I'd like to share an example of what we learned from the Licking County Alcoholism Prevention Program, or LAP, which received funds to extend and upgrade the Wi-Fi throughout their building, purchase and replace equipment to promote telehealth in Zoom groups, and provide staff training. They told us, when the pandemic began, many of our clients were not able to physically come to our office. We immediately began switching to telehealth services. We were unable to do any groups, which left many clients in a vulnerable situation. We did not have a system in place that could accommodate all of our clients' needs. We are currently better prepared to help individuals thrive and survive and be safe. Help from funding has given this agency the ability to become more viable in addressing today's needs. The grant directly impacted our internet service. However, the indirect needs that were addressed have far-reaching effects on our community and our community members. We essentially turned our workforce into a mobile workforce with the ability to provide services wherever the services are needed. We also learned from grant partner feedback that COVID-19 relief funded programs and services were distributed across all Licking County. Residents of nearly 30 communities, including townships, villages, and cities, were served. The types of services that these funds supported included everything from personal hygiene items and PPE to health services, clothing, and food. This joint effort with United Way was able to provide help to thousands of Licking County residents. 14 of 22 organizations served more than 250 individuals. We dedicated a refreshed park. As we continued to work with the COVID-19 Relief Fund, spring brought seeds of hope and LCF's first virtual community celebration, our refreshed Foundation Park dedication. You may have enjoyed our video featuring friends, donors, and community partners reflecting on our reimagined downtown oasis dedicated to Bill and Sue Moore. This accessible and beautiful space is complete with a new pollinator garden created in collaboration with the Dawes Arboretum. Many community members have since enjoyed this special place. We invite you to find a moment in your day to stop and enjoy some quiet among our flowers. We help nonprofits realign and adapt. In July, to assist nonprofits in rapidly adjusting to uncertain times, LCF presented a training for nonprofit leaders called Pivot the Nonprofit in partnership with Kramer and Associates. This workshop offered helpful approaches to realigning priorities and adapting to providing services, communicating and fundraising during the pandemic restrictions. Several participants commented that this information helped them successfully streamline and adjust their operations and plans. We surveyed to stay focused and in touch. To ensure we were targeting our grant making and keeping a finger on the pulse of our nonprofit partners during the pandemic, LCF completed a survey in August with responses from 73 nonprofit organizations. The majority of these respondents represented the health and human services sector. They shared how they were currently being impacted by COVID-19 and whether they anticipated further changes to their finances, programs, or operating models. I'd like to share a few of the observations gleaned from working with our nonprofit community through this unusual time. As Licking County nonprofits continue to serve the community during the pandemic, only 27% were operating at full capacity. 56% were offering pre-COVID programs and services in a reduced capacity, and the remainder had suspended services. Nonprofits were compelled to do more with less. The majority experienced or anticipated experience an increase in demand for services. When asked to describe their experience with an increased demand for services, the majority of those responding either had experienced this impact at some level or anticipated experiencing. Nonprofits took actions to maintain operations. The majority of respondents were either planning or considering to make, or had already made, the following operational changes: conduct board meetings virtually, make a special appeal to donors, cut other administrative expenses, draw on reserves, apply for the Paycheck Protection Program to keep their workforce employed during the pandemic, restrict travel, restrict professional development of staff, and freeze hiring. Nonprofits were stretched but coping well with cuts. The majority of respondents were not planning or considering to make the following operational changes: cut wages, cut or furlough staff, apply for the Federal Economic Injury Disaster Loan Advance, increase draw on their endowment, change or financial controls, ask funders or seek legal permission to remove restrictions from donated funds. Nonprofits saw decreased sources of revenue. The majority of respondents experienced at some level more decreases than increases across all sources of revenue, including decline in donations, loss of fee-for-service revenues due to event and program cancellations, reduction in operating support, and delayed grant processing for program and general operations. Government grants and contracts were least impacted. Grantees reported that the source of revenue showing the least impact was from government grants and contracts. The majority of respondents had not experienced government grants that cannot be reimbursed and interruption or suspension of government grants. Nonprofits were resilient and nimble. All in all, we learned that most of those organizations did need to make some adjustments to their operations, and many lost some fundraising revenue. For the most part, they were resilient and nimble and continued to serve. We hosted more conversations to learn more. LCF hosted 5 virtual community conversations with groups of grant partners to learn more about their program and service delivery during the pandemic and their key concerns. These intimate and honest group conversations inspired new collaborations among some of our participants. What we learned supported and dovetailed with the survey results. We learned together about systemic racism, joining with community foundations around the country in responding to the national cry for social justice and racial equity. The Licking County Foundation established the Lift All Voices Fund for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We engaged the Racial Equity Institute to present 3 well-attended sessions of a groundwater approach, training on systemic racism to members of our community. To date, nearly 300 Licking Countyans have completed this step toward creating a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable community. Attendees were asked to share their thoughts on how they might incorporate their takeaway into their work, volunteer activities, or other aspects of their life. Here's a representative example of the responses. Now that we understand the pervasiveness of racial inequity in our society, I think that we as Licking County leaders need to know how to take this knowledge and put it into action. Right now, I don't even know where to start. As a follow-up, Licking County Foundation just completed a June learning series on how to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into daily practices, interactions, and operations. We celebrated a spectacular milestone. At the end of summer, we achieved a true milestone with a very special project. We celebrated the completion of the Sullivan Building's exterior restoration. It's truly magnificent. The work included restoration of the mosaics, original upper art glass windows, and terracotta. It also included replacement of the unoriginal lower windows and the installation of new doors, roof, and skylight. The finishing touch is a nighttime lighting design for the facade. The final phase of this project includes interior renovation and completion of the adjacent annex. We'd hoped to begin construction in 2021, but the pandemic has complicated this schedule. However, last December, we were grateful to learn that the state of Ohio is providing $489,000 in capital budget support, and our partner and past funder, the Jeffers Family Foundation, has just announced a $1.1 million challenge grant to the Licking County Foundation. Both of these will certainly boost efforts to getting this project back on track and to the finish line. We lunched and learned with donors on giving back. LCF is dedicated to bringing new ideas and approaches to strengthen our community with timely and useful information. In the fall, we offered donors, fund holders, and local financial and estate planning professionals a virtual lunch and learn session called Charitable Giving in 2020 and Beyond, presented by attorney Lee Heckman of Reese Pyle Meyer. Participants learned how the SECURE Act and the CARES Act impacted philanthropic goals, charitable giving, and tax strategy. We were honored to disperse historic federal pandemic relief. As the pandemic wore on into the fall, we knew that the community still needed help. The relief came in the form of a large federal disbursement to Ohio from the CARES Act. The work we had already done during 2020 with our nonprofits positioned us well to assist the Licking County Commissioners to distribute our community share of those funds to eligible nonprofits. Because it was federal funding, the CARES Act dollars came with very specific guidance to follow. Only organizations that could demonstrate COVID-related business interruption, loss of revenue, or COVID-related expenditures were eligible, and only if they had not received funding from those same eligible expenditures. It was a unique and important collaboration, fitting together all the pieces of this large puzzle. And the stakes were high, especially for organizations that had not received any other help. To identify the greatest areas of need in the nonprofit sector, we took a two-pronged approach. Our experience with the COVID-19 relief grants and our survey results helped us to prioritize some organizations that we knew had not yet received other help or were unlikely to access other forms of state or federal support. We also created a process to allow any organization that met the criteria to describe their need, and if they were eligible, we invited them to complete an application. Did I mention we were working on a very tight timeline? Licking County received the funds in November 2020, and at that time, we were being required to spend all the funds by December 30th. Subsequently, the federal government extended the deadline into 2021. Most of the grants could be placed in 3 categories. Grants for lost revenue due to business interruption, including fundraising events due to COVID. Grants for lost program revenue, for which no other funding from other sources was available due to COVID. Grants for fixed costs or already incurred expenses that had to be maintained throughout the pandemic, such as rent, mortgage, and utilities, or for additional expenses, such as cleaning supplies and PPE, all due to COVID. Licking County Foundation was able to help organizations as large as the American Red Cross to smaller 1 or 2 person operations like Fostering Further and everything in between. We worked one-on-one with each applicant to ensure their expenditures complied with the federal rules. We dispersed almost $883,000 in federal relief to 45 nonprofits. This fast-paced, complex initiative required close coordination with Licking County government, as well as other CARES Act subgrantees like the Licking County Chamber of Commerce and the Licking County Coalition for Housing. Needless to say, the foundation welcomed 2021 with open arms. We launched our scholarship program for the 2021-2022 academic year with 4 new scholarships and a total of 73 scholarship funds, providing opportunities for scholars of all ages. A few weeks ago, we completed our scholarship offers totaling more than $1.3 million to nearly 360 students. Lots of checks are going to colleges and universities across the country. Lots of inspiring expressions of thanks are arriving from scholars to share with donors. I'd like to share a bit from one of these notes. Dear donors, I want to say thank you very much for supporting me in my journey for higher education. I'm going to study at OSUN and the main campus for mechanical engineering. We'll also be minoring in music, where I will play my trumpet. I'm a first-gen college student in a low-income home. So knowing I will get through this year without worrying about money is a blessing from God through you. This recipient also enclosed a few photos, one playing said trumpet. In February, we distributed more than $900,000 in grants to 75 nonprofit organizations who are the beneficiaries of designated agency and agency funds. And in the first half of 2021, nearly $270,000 has been distributed through our thoughtful fund advisors via donor-advised grants and through random acts of kindness microgrants selected by staff and board to benefit the unsung heroes of our community. As we look ahead, we are hopeful and energized by our strategic plan adopted in 2020. Informed by community input, the 4 pillars of the LCF strategic plan are community leadership. We will continue to lend our support, insight, and collaborative spirit to help lead community initiatives. We'll bring together diverse voices to work with us as we address challenges. We'll also continue to create opportunities for learning and engagement for all of us. Donor engagement. We'll continue to deepen our relationship with our committed donors and help others express their compassion and action through philanthropy, whether that means supporting one of our existing funds, establishing a fund to lift up a cause or organization they are passionate about, or creating a scholarship to help students achieve their dreams. Nonprofit capacity building. As we learn more about and from our nonprofit partners, we'll continue to ask this question: how can LCF better serve and support them in meeting community needs? In addition to funding, we'll provide training and other resources to strengthen organizations that improve lives. We'll also look at ways to better understand the impact of our grants. Finally, we cannot do without our 4th pillar, organizational sustainability. LCF must maintain an infrastructure and operating model that allows us to keep going and keep growing so that we are able to serve the community in the most effective, efficient way possible long into the future. Our assets, not only financial but non-financial, require sound stewardship from our board and staff. We are here for and because of our community, whose needs are changing even as we sit here today. With a strategic plan as our roadmap, Licking County Foundation is excited for the future and what we can do together with the people of our community. And we are looking forward to kicking off a year-long celebration of our 65th anniversary this November. However, you can be certain that the Licking County Foundation will be ready for whatever comes our way, pivoting during crisis and embracing new possibilities. So what will we do with everything that we've learned over the last 18 months and really even before that? the introduction of multi-year grants in 2019, Licking County Foundation began to embrace a practice in grant making that we did not know yet had a name: trust-based philanthropy. It's an approach that embraces and encompasses some key principles which we are doing our best to put into practice. First, giving multi-year funding. Our initial cohort of multi-year grant partners included organizations with which we had previously established partnerships and a solid understanding of their community impact. Through mutual commitments, multi-year grant agreements incorporate not only funding, but capacity building resources such as the opportunity to conduct organizational assessments and other consulting services that strengthen and enhance operations. Second, funding beyond the check. Our multi-year approach is rooted in our intention to deepen our relationships with these organizations, better understand their role in the community and the impact of the services they provide, and emphasize shared learning over application or report collection. Third, getting and acting on feedback. With the onset of the pandemic, we needed to apply this listening and learning approach across many different organizations to be able to respond effectively in directing funds where they were needed the most. As a result of this process, we gained new insights into how different organizations of many shapes and sizes are serving a broad and complex array of needs across many different communities in Licking County. They are the experts. Fourth, simplifying and streamlining. The experience demanded that we lean into what we learned and take a step toward putting what we learned into action. As a result, we determined that rather than tax our nonprofit community with another application and evaluation process, our 2021 grants would be one-time 6-month grants aligned with the foundation's strategic goals, available funds, and efforts to support both critical and underfunded needs in the community. Our 11-member grant review committee met in May to formalize a record number of grant recommendations, and our governing committee approved the distributions, which began in June. To date, 58 grants totaling more than $576,000 have been distributed. Similar grant making will continue throughout the rest of the year. Fifth, being transparent. Whether or not an organization received funding in this round of grants, Licking County Foundation will continue to encourage all nonprofits serving our area to inform us of their efforts and good work in the community to increase our knowledge and spark relationships. Sixth, sharing power. To broaden our understanding of this new approach, our staff and board attended a recent presentation by Philanthropy Ohio on trust-based philanthropy to learn more about this strategy and how other community foundations are shifting towards this equitable, shared approach to grant making. This approach was also a key topic for learning and discussion at LCF's annual board planning retreat a few weeks ago. Seventh, honoring donor intent. At the core of our purpose is ensuring that the wishes of all of our donors are honored with every grant we make while addressing important needs in our community. Eighth, doing the homework. Trust-based philanthropy puts the onus on the Licking County Foundation to truly learn and then support the work of the organizations that are effectively addressing unmet needs, whether that organization was just established last year or has been a grant partner with us for decades. In the end, this approach is all about working side by side with nonprofits to better serve the community and improve more lives. This is happening all around us. I'd like to share just a few recent stories. Big brothers, big sisters of Licking and Perry counties shared, this could not have come at a better time for us. Due to COVID-19, we had to close all our school-based matches. This was devastating to us, to say the least. We are now hiring and training new coordinators in the schools, as well as seeking old and new volunteers for the fall. The challenge will be to start from scratch at each one of the schools to rebuild and to grow. Right now, there are so many more children who will need extra one-on-one attention than ever before. The Friends of the Licking County Library shared, thank you for the grant in support of the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. I am happy to report that the number of children registered for this program continues to grow. We have over 5,000 Licking County children participating in the monthly book gifting program. We are so glad you joined us today to learn how philanthropy made a difference in our community during this last year. You made that difference with your support, your grant making, and your willingness to learn and work alongside us. We hope that you took away something new, some inspiration for the future, and some assurance that you're a part of the many ripples of hope and positive change in this beautiful pond we call home. Thank you.